Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Thrilling stories of people that have been impacted by the healing ministry of Loma University Medical Center. People that have come from around the world to be treated for various diseases and illness and traumatic injuries. Our special guest today is Jeff Teets, an athlete, really participated in a number of different triathlons. He's a real estate developer from Scottsdale, Arizona. Jeff, it's good to have you here with us and good to have you back here in the Loma Linda area. Before we talk about your journey here at Loma Linda and coming to Loma Linda, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from and where you were raised and went to school.
I was born in New Jersey. Early on moved out to Grand Rapids, Michigan with my family and was raised there. Went on to Michigan State University and received a bachelor's in accounting there. Went to work for one of the big four public accounting firms out in Phoenix, Arizona, and worked with them for 11 years, and then went to leave them for a client of mine in real estate development, which kind of got me started with where I am right now, and I've been in that field my whole working career.
So how long have you been in Scottsdale area then?
Oh, probably 25 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you went there immediately after graduating then?
Right.
Okay. And how many people are in your family?
Got 5 of us, my 2 brothers and my mother and my father.
Okay. And I know your mother's still living back east there.
Mm-hmm.
Where in?
She lives in Scotch Plains, New Jersey right now.
Okay. Now, you've been in a number of different events. You've done a few road races and been a cyclist. Tell us, what are the kind of things you've been involved in?
I like to stay pretty active. A lot of my friends were into triathlons where I was living in outside of Phoenix, and rode bikes with them 3 times a week, and then swam with them, and eventually got enough nerve up to enter a race with them, and I've done that off and on for a number of years, but I haven't done much of it the last couple years other than road bike racing.
When you talk about road bike racing, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a mile? Are we talking about several miles? Or
anywhere from 50 to, a little over 100.
50 to 100 miles?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're talking about some pretty serious racing then. So here's an individual.
I just survived the race.
You're an individual, and I know you were telling me earlier about doing some rock climbing and doing some hiking. So you've been been athletic all of your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up, the Midwestern type of playing football, basketball, baseball. I played quarterback in college for a couple of years, and played a little bit, and I played baseball and basketball in high school and so forth.
So you've been athletically inclined and running and keeping in good shape and doing everything just right. And a couple of years ago, you were diagnosed with cancer. And, tell us even why they found it, because it seemed like you had a very low PSA.
Right. Yeah, 3 years ago, fall of '06, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Prior to that, well, just to back up, my father died of prostate cancer. His father died of prostate cancer.
So both your father and grandfather,
right,
not only had it, but they died from the prostate cancer.
Correct.
Okay.
So probably 10 years prior to being diagnosed, I figured the smart thing to do would try to find out who's the best urologist in Arizona, and I think there's some good ones, but I think I found one that I was comfortable with, and went to him every year, and my PSA was fairly low, and then.
Now, when you say low, what are we talking about? There's a lot of people watching here, and they don't even know, what a low or a high PSA is. So.
Sure. Between 0.4 and 0.7. And
0.4 and 0.7.
Right.
Okay. Not 1.4.
No.
So we're talking about a very low PSA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we had a PSA test in October of '06, and it went to 1.4 or 1.1. And my doctor he knows my history. In fact, he's a prostate cancer survivor, so real empathetic, knows the, how you'd feel, going through the process. And he wanted to do a biopsy or consider a biopsy, and, I was trying to talk him out of that, and it wasn't something.
For our listening audience, when we talk about, normally, for the last several years, a 4.0 is where people would begin watching. Not 0.4, but
Right.
4.0. And then they've discovered in the last few years that there was a significant number of people that had cancer between 2.5 and 4.0. But you're talking about yours was 0.4, and it fluctuated between 4.4 and 0.7.
Yes.
And so the PSA comes back, and share again what it was?
Well, it was the prior year it was 0.7, and then it came back 1.4. So you'll see your reports back from the pathologist that list your PSA, and a lot of them have the fine print at the bottom saying that, as long as you're less than 4.0, that, there's no further follow-up
Nothing to
needed
worry
or
about.
whatever. And I don't know why they still do that, because everything that I've read and doctors I've talked to, the more significant factor is the velocity, or the percentage increase from last year to this year. And
Okay, now that's a very important point for our listening audience. It's the velocity, in other words, how much it goes up within a 1 year period of time. The percentage that it goes up.
Not the degree it went up. So
Right.
a double's a double. And even though I went to the Big Ten, a 0.7 to 1.4, I figured out is a double. So my doctor proceeded with a biopsy, and I had 2 cores that were positive. Small amount of malignant tissue, but malignant nonetheless.
When you talk about cores, they did the biopsy, so they took a number of samples.
Yes, they did 8 samples in the various sectors of the prostate, and then 2 of the sectors, one right next to each other, which was that was good also. The fact, if you have to have a malignant, it's good that they're, the ones are together. The thought,
So it's kind of a
the thought being that it's localized,
yeah.
correct.
Even though the prostate's just about the size of a walnut, what you're saying, it was in a particular area, okay?
Right. So we did that, and then I started talking to him as far as what's the next step. He's obviously trained to do the radical prostatectomy, and I had a low also. My Gleason score, which is the degree or the aggressiveness of the prostate cancer, was a 3+3, so
it
kind
was
of
a
moderately
6.
aggressive.
And it goes all the way up, 3+3, and it goes all the way up to a 10, which is the most aggressive of all. So yours was a 3+3, which was not, it sounds like it was early stage.
Right. So.
But it's still cancer.
Right. It's still cancer, and we decided to. I felt I had time to research what I wanted to do.
So were you upset at this point? How were you feeling when, you're Mr. Invincible, you're doing all these different things, and all of a sudden you got cancer, but probably because both father and grandfather, you knew the probability was quite high.
Yeah, I'm probably a lot more, probably more physically like my father than my other 2 brothers, I suppose. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I wasn't upset. I was just, I think you just kind of in denial for a while. You just think it's just a bad dream. You're going to wake up and
Maybe they
nothing,
made a mistake.
Yeah,
it's kind of a dream.
Well, I didn't want to have the biopsy after at first came back, because I just had done a 50-mile road race and, riding a bike. It was a few days before when I finished, but
Still,
that can have an artificially high PSA, if you've been on a bike for a long time right before you get the test. So we retested, and it actually was higher than what it was previously a week before. So, yeah, you're kind of hoping that it really wasn't what they told you to do, and then, and then I started accepting it and started getting on with reading books about it and what the next steps are.
So in other words, the doctor told you had it, and of course he was suggesting that you have surgery. but you were apparently going to push on and look at some of the other options.
He said he had other options. He said you could follow up with, and because he had prostate cancer himself. I think he was,
He's
a
pretty
little more empathetic to all the various options. I think just having him, help me explore some of these other options.
That was probably a help
opened
to
up
you.
the book for me to go and look at other ones, and I called the National Cancer Institute, the American Cancer Society, and they sent me a lot of literature on all the various ways in which you can deal with it, and then
So I want to make a point here. Even though you were diagnosed with cancer, you kind of came to the conclusion, working with your doctor, that you didn't need to immediately make a decision within the next week or so.
Correct.
That you had time on your hands, and which is true with most people that have prostate cancer. It's been growing for a while, and in most cases, it's slow growing. And so you didn't need to make a decision, and so you didn't take a week to make the decision. You began exploring apparently a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do?
I have a fraternity brother that works for Eli Lilly, and his son he's good friends with the guy that's head of cancer research worldwide for Eli Lilly. He had him call me, and then he was able to get the top surgeon in the country to call me, and I could walk through things with him, ask him questions. The top person that handles a lot of cryosurgery down in Florida, I talked to him. He opened the doors, to a lot of folks.
He apparently had some contacts that he was able to get you through. I mean, just a lot of people can't just call up and talk to some of these premier surgeons or whatever modality they're preaching.
Or oncology.
Yeah,
the top oncologist at TGen, which is coming up with a lot of different ways to approach cancer from a chemo standpoint, from having a custom chemo blend for you after they test your tissue prior to that. I mean, I got a chance to talk to him, and
so they actually customize the treatment.
well, they would if you went, if you went that way,
route.
And went through, and he opened the door for a few other people to talk to, and I was between, and then I proceeded to go from there to talking to past patients, whether they're prostatectomy patients or proton beam therapy patients or brachytherapy patients, and ask them how they're doing, what their scores were prior to or right after being diagnosed, and then ask them, hey, would you do the same thing again? Because a lot of them are pretty honest, and some of them maybe nobody wants to suggest that they made a mistake, and maybe they would say I did exactly what I would do it again. And
so you apparently talked to a number of different people.
Yeah, I was encouraged by Bob Marchini, from the prostate Bob website, and Bob not only encouraged me, he kind of hounded me to talk to more folks, and I talked to a couple, and he, you need to, let me give you a list, and you need to talk to all different types of people, young people, people that are older, people that have done this, and people have done that, and keep notes, and through his help, I came up with a little questionnaire that each one of them I talked to, I kept notes while I was talking to them.
So
on
are you
the phone.
asking the people the same kind of questions? So you're.
I try to do it like a exactly. Yeah. So I try to do it like a lab test where you you try to have a similar question, similar answers, and then you can kind of lay them all out. I had my dining room table filled with the piles with the good result, okay result, and not so good result.
Different stacks.
Yeah, and then followed up. And I turned around following up with a lot of those folks, and I got down to a couple decisions on how to get it treated, and there was a few people. One of them was a past patient at Loma University, and pretty unbiased person, and he's a pathologist as well, and he helped me.
Yes, Dr.
Terry Westpick.
Terry Westpick, yeah.
And Terry was kind of in the same process I was in the decision process. He was between brachytherapy, which is seed radiation, and proton beam therapy. By then, I'd ruled out all the other various options for various reasons, and other people tried to explain to me why they would do one versus the other, but
well, this
I
is a
didn't.
very, very personal decision. I mean, each one, you know, chooses different modalities, and they go through a different thinking process to arrive at the decision. But yeah, you know, you begin to narrow it down, and then you did talk to Dr. Wepsick, and apparently this must have helped you somewhat.
Yeah, it's just the way he explained it to me, and you know, and I asked a few questions. This was like the second or third phone call. He was probably tired of talking to me, and he just said it in a way that the light bulb finally went on. And the other way is fine too. They have good results, but with where, in particular, with the way the pathology came back, where my positive cores were on the peripheral of the prostate. And the prostate cancer has a tendency to grow towards the peripheral after it latches hold. And I was just concerned with the seeds having spots there where it may not get it on the peripheral. And that was Dr. Westbick's concern too. So with the proton beam, you know, you have, not only do you treat the whole prostate, but you have a margin beyond the prostate that it treats it.
Which is one of the advantages of the proton. It gets right around on the border, and of course, if something's going to escape, the first thing it's going to do is right there on the border.
Correct.
So
I mean, there's the perineal nerves that wrap around it, and they get on the nerves, and then that'll help them spread. And then, so anyway, Terry. So he wasn't pushing me to do one versus the other, but he suggested that I have a second opinion on the pathology read. So the people at Loma Linda did that for me. And I was hoping they were going to just say it was a head cold or something, but it came back the same. But the reading on where the malignant tumors were, the cancer was by those nerves. So that combined with like Terry's explanation made my decision on like what I wanted to do. And then from there, you know, it was the decision on where do you want to get that done. Well, at the time, there was only Loma Linda University and Massachusetts General. The other three that are in operation right now weren't open at the time. And then I was looking beyond the United States, and I found that Loma Linda University had treated 2/3 of the patients treated by proton beam therapy were treated at Loma Linda. So then that was the next decision made. And then it was painful talking about it. Are you listening to it probably more than me talking about it? But the next decision was what doctor do I want to work with? And I talked to, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I think he's an orthopedic surgeon in Florida who got treated here. And he, you know, understands how you get treated and where you get treated is fine, but it's important to have somebody that you can kind of connect with and you feel confident
in. Be able to relate to. And so you ended up coming here, you finally made the decision, and you chose, it's my understanding that you were with Dr. Rossi, because you were able to relate to him and other things. But we're talking about 2 years ago. So we've got a few minutes here. Tell us about, you told us about your journey coming here, but what about while you were here? I mean, were you actively involved while you were here? Were you just showing up for your treatment? What were you doing?
Oh, I stayed close to the hospital, so I could walk to my treatments in the morning. Traffic is a little bit of a problem around the hospital, but I mean, there's a good reason for it. It's because there's a lot of people that feel the same in that it's Center for Excellence, and then they should be treated there, whether it's a child or orthopedic surgeon or whatever. So, but yeah, I stayed pretty active here. I met a couple real good friends, or more than a couple, but two that you know, we did a lot together with, and went to your meetings on Wednesday night, and there's a lot of activities here.
Well, I think you participated in the Possibilities Triathlon.
Yeah, 30.
As a patient.
Yeah, you talked to me about being the biker on your team for a relay.
Right.
And I said, I don't if I'm going to do it, let's just do the whole thing. So, and it was a short triathlon. It's not
kind
a
of a sprint
monster one.
triathlon,
So, but that was after 30 treatments, 30 of my 45 treatments. On a Saturday, I was treated on Friday. The only side effects I felt in the race was my hip was sore. But the proton beam comes in your hip one day, and then the other hip your next day. So it aggravates some of the connective tissue, which it's since gone away. I didn't know that's what was causing it. I kept hounding my doctor to tell him there's something not right, and they just, I mean, they wanted to have me stay on course. It wasn't hurting real bad, but so I completed the triathlon there. And you can treat it. You did pretty well yourself.
We had a good time. Now, the important thing that for our listening audience is you completed your treatments 2 years ago, and of course everybody's watching their PSA, and you had kind of a little bump. And why don't you just take a couple minutes and tell us, because generally they wanted to go down. Yours was low to begin with, and yours went down a little ways, and then what happened?
Yeah, the 4 months after I finished treatment, I came back for my. They want you to come back 4 months after, and then after that, it's every 6 months up to 5 years. And 4 months after, it was back down to 0.71, which was a half. It was kind of where I was before I was diagnosed. So I figured, oh, that's great.
It looked very encouraging.
And it takes 40 months before it continues to go down or move around until 40 months. And then 40 months is the line in the sand where
it should be your nadir.
Yeah, that's the point where you're going to get, that's going to be the number that will, where you'll bottom out based on your treatment. So it's so I was thinking, okay, 0.71 after 4 months, and it's not linear. And then the next 6 months later, it went up to 0.82 or something, and then 6 months after that, it went up. I was home, and it went up to 1.05. I figured this is going in the wrong direction. So my doctor, Dr. Rossi, had me go in every 3 months, and then the next time in, it went back down to 0.7. And then yesterday, I found out I was 0.47, so I was real happy with that.
So it kind of bounced around, and people are concerned because, 3 consecutive rises is sometimes indicative that, maybe there's been a reoccurrence, or maybe they didn't get the whole thing, but yours has gone back down. Now, you came back, you were tested here, but you came back to participate here recently in the Ken Venturi tournament, and I brought you back, you're on our team, and I know there's a number of people that are watching, and they know about the Ken Venturi tournament. It was started actually 19 years ago. The money that comes in from that tournament goes for one of the academic chairs. And they also have a sponsors tournament. And I think this would be a good opportunity to tell us what happened in that sponsors tournament.
Well, Sunday, the Ken Venturi tournament is on Monday, and the sponsors tournament is a thanks for the people that ran the tournament on Monday. It's thanks for the efforts, and they play the day before at a different golf course. And a couple of us that aren't sponsors or or people that work at the hospital participated in that. Yourself, me, Mike Dyson, and his brother Mickey Dyson.
Yeah, we had our own little team.
And Mike was a patient a few years before me, and we had one of those days where everything just went in, and we were 15 under, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think the next team was 13 under, so we won that one. So that was nice. Of course, we were counting our chickens before
I want to repeat that again. So in other words, we won on the sponsors tournament.
We won on the sponsors tournament.
Right, and we were kind of in competition with another team called the Bob Marchini team, and did do very well and won on that tournament. And actually, when we played in the Ken Venturi tournament, we did quite well on that day too.
Yeah, and then the next day we did not 15 under, but we did 10 under.
Right.
So so we could have done a little better. We were 2 shots out of winning the whole thing, but
we got
win
just
2
a
days
couple
in
minutes left. Tell me how having cancer is making a difference.
Well, I mean, you try to get back to your life and try to do what you do, and you're never going to forget it. I think a lot of people helped me out, and I think trying to give back to them was important for me, and so, I try to put in my 2 cents, when I see somebody that is going through the same process that I was, And I think I think that's good. And you just look at things differently. You have an opportunity to travel. You have an opportunity to do something, this or that. You maybe don't procrastinate and put things off as much as you might have earlier.
Well, once you're diagnosed with cancer, all of a sudden, you're confronted with your own mortality and realize that there is a time frame on it. I mean, all of us know that, the clock is ticking, but somehow when you're diagnosed, you hear that clock ticking louder than ever before. And I know that you are making a difference as you interact with other people and you share with them. And I know that a lot of people are going to come into contact with you because they've heard that you had some type of cancer and heard about Loma, Linda, and I know that you're sharing the word. For those in the audience that are looking on, I know that this week there's been somebody there that's watching somewhere around the world, and we have people in, I think, over 150 countries around the world that are watching LLBN. And I know there's somebody out there in the audience right now that has been diagnosed with some kind of an illness. And I want you to know that when we're diagnosed, sometimes that's the good news because we've already had the illness and we just don't know about it. But if you just found out about it, now you can do something about it. And the most important thing is that, God's got a plan for each one of us. And if we give him an opportunity, he'll open and close doors and he'll put us in contact with other people. And Jeff's a wonderful illustration here about people taking responsibility for their own health and not waiting for somebody else, but to explore and talk and search and talk to other people. And I know that God right now has got a plan for your life. And if you'll listen to him and listen to others that he puts in contact with you, he'll open and close doors that you'll be able to discern his will. Give him a chance. He's looking and waiting for you right now. God bless you.